In today's episode, I have John Gregson, and we talk about sales training and how that's necessary for a legal firm nowadays. We talk about marketing, so personal branding, making sure that lawyers are approachable for potential clients. And we also talk about technology and actually bringing in some new tech products for the firm. So it's a really interesting one. I hope you enjoy. So my name's Oliver Eardley, and this is the Eardley Bird Podcast. So where I'd like to start the podcast is to learn a little bit more about you, your background, how you've got to where you are, that sort of stuff. So obviously on your LinkedIn, I noticed that it says, trainee solicitor, and you've got the amount of days that you started there, and then you've got, I think it's 5,719 it was, days to becoming a partner. So yeah, talk me through that. How did that come about, and how did you get where you are?
Okay, so I've spent my entire career at Weightmans. I've been here from day one. I'm not quite sure how and why I did that on my profile. I literally, and those days are accurate. I sat down and I didn't count out, but I worked out how many days it's taken me through each part of it. Quite deliberate in the way I've done that because I'm quite proud of the fact that I suppose I spent my entire career at Weightmans, and I've never felt the need to look elsewhere or do anything else. I've said elsewhere and to other people that's a lack of ambition. That's slightly tongue-in-cheek. It's not. It's because I've been able to achieve and do whatever I want to do at Weightmans. Mm-hmm. But it has. It's come through from day one. So I started here 2005 September, literally straight out of my LPC in the May. And I came in. I started as a trainee. I did my training contract for the best part of 2 years in the firm. And then I qualified in 2007. And really, I haven't had to look elsewhere or look really beyond things from that. So I did seats in, I think, in our police team, in our what we used to call dedicated disease. We're never quite sure what undedicated disease was, but it was dedicated disease at the time.
Yeah.
And then I landed in the employment seat. And again, I've never really looked back after becoming an employment trainee. 20 years this year, I think it is. So 19 of those years I've been an employment lawyer, and I've had the opportunities, the experiences, and really the platform is the way I always kind of look at it, to be able to kind of do whatever I want, how I want to do it, and really be able to build a career out for myself with all of that thing. So yeah, I've been here, I'd say 20 years. Never really had the need to look elsewhere for that, but it's very much been a platform and an opportunity that, yeah, I can look back and I can kind of put days and markers in the ground to say, well, this is what I've been able to do. And for me, it's a reflection of what I've achieved, but also the opportunities that I think kind of finding the right place to work and the right way to be able to work has been able to give me in that respect.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's always a good sign if staff are staying around for sort of 20 years' time at a firm. Is it similar across the rest of the business? Is there a lot of other employees that have been there a long time, or is it just something that's really resonated with you?
I think it probably is true. I think there's a lot of us that have kind of built careers out here. So, the team I work with and those around me, there's somebody that's been here just as long. And in fact, a good chunk of the team have been here a good period of time. If I look elsewhere across the firm, there's a lot of people that have had careers, have got lives. Some people leave, they realise it's no better elsewhere, they come back. I think it reflects very well on the firm, it reflects on culture, it reflects again on the opportunities that are here. It's not a place, I think, that you come in, you kind of do a couple of years and then you move on from. I think a lot of people, they come to Weightmans, they find it's a home. They find that it complements very well the work-life balance that people necessarily want. You don't always get that, in the nature of what we sign up for. We know this isn't a 9-to-5 job being a lawyer. It's more often it's a vocation. It's a lifestyle in some respects, but I think we get that balance right with what we do here, what we can offer people. And I can talk to that from both sides in terms of being a junior lawyer, being able to progress through it, and now being a partner as well, as to I see what we ask from those who work for us and with us. So no, I'm not alone. There are people who've been here a lot longer. There's people in my team who are pushing kind of 40 years. There's one or two individuals in that respect, and that's the kind of way we are. That's the kind of the family and the way the firm works. Is I'm not unique in any way, shape, or form, to be honest. Probably smack bang in the middle in terms of kind of service and how that's come together.
That's great. And what sort of drew you to employment law?
this is a really loaded question. Every time I ask this, I make myself sound even worse when I try and answer it. So probably kind of for the fifth or sixth time of answering it, I'll try and give an even more refined answer. I am very much an accidental employment lawyer. So I don't believe, if I recall back, I did employment law as part of my degree. I didn't do it as part of my LPC. I had no interest. I can't say I have no interest. That'll get me to trouble now if I say that. No interest as in terms of being an employment lawyer as a trainee. I landed simply in an employment seat because one of my peers as a trainee, Louise, who's still part of the employment team now as our professional support lawyer, again, reflecting back on the culture that the trainees had, still work with them today. She very much wanted to be an employment lawyer. So there was that little bit of getting people in the right seat at the right time to get to the qualification stage. I landed here in my third seat to be able to allow that to happen for Louise to move in. Came in with no expectations, no idea as to really what this was. It was just any other seat, willing to try it. Quite liked it, actually. It was something different. It was real life. It was people. It was a bit different. And then as I came to the end of my third seat, I was offered the opportunity to go on a client secondment, pretty much overnight, but for 6 months to a client to go and work in their HR department. And that really kind of turned the light on. That opened up the idea of, actually, this is what this job could be. This is what it's like working with clients day to day, from seeing it from that client perspective. That really opened my eyes to things. Came back from that secondment, and then it was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. This is for me. This is really what talks to me. This is what kind of makes me think this is more than the job. This is me now. Yeah, I've not looked back from that. And so I kind of fell into it. I didn't come in singing and dancing saying this is the one thing I want to do. But what I'm very clear on is, in a slightly kind of perverse way, if I hadn't done that, I don't really know what I would be doing now. I haven't got an answer as to what other area of law would have interested me, what would have taken me. It's slightly worrying, I guess, as to where I would have. I'm sure I probably would have found something, because I'm very much of the view you have to go and try things. You have to go and see what that is. Employment law was that. I had no preconception to it. You just try it. No, I'm very much kind of an accidental employment lawyer, I think. But I'm still getting away with it 19 years later. So we're just going to be honest, as long as everybody finds me out, I think I've got enough in the bank to try and get away with it for a bit longer, to be honest.
Yeah, I think you're doing a great job if you're still there 19 years later. So what does, just for those of people who don't know a lot about what it's like to be a partner in a law firm and what your sort of day-to-day looks like, what does that typically look like for you?
Well, no 2 days are the same is a simple answer to that. So I wear a few different hats in what I do. So yeah, day job, I'm an employment lawyer, and I'm primarily I'm a litigator in that. So I deal with employment tribunal litigation. So anything that kind of falls in the sphere of that's the day job. And yeah, the experience, the level I'm at, it's generally the kind of complicated, the horrible, the really messy stuff. So I still have a caseload. I still practice law. I still do law. You ask the people I work with, they probably say differently. But I still am a practicing lawyer. I still do some law. I can still go if I have to. So I'm still a lawyer. I still do some employment law. I do a lot of work with clients though. So I work with two of our biggest employment kind of law clients, two of our big corporate clients. I do a lot of work on the client relationship side. So a lot of my day is spent working with them either actively on matters that we've got, how we strategically work through them, how we resolve them, or it's on the client relationship side of things, and just making sure that actually how we work with them, what we do, that side of things is taken care of. So that forms a really big part of my day. Obviously, in that kind of client service piece, we need a team of people to do that. So I have a team of people. I've got currently about 22 people that I work kind of as part of my team. So there's the management of that as part of our wider employment team. So I'm involved in the day-to-day management of those things. And then the other hat that I wear is I work with it kind of as part of our kind of product and innovation team at Weightmans as well. So I'm involved in some of the legal tech stuff, some of the innovation work, just seeing how in a slightly broader sense away from being an employment lawyer, we can look at innovation, we can look at products and how we solve client problems as well. So there's a sprinkling of that as part of my job. And then you have all the other things that come into stuff. So I do some work with our early careers team. You do some stuff in a marketing sense. You do some stuff just in the general kind of application, kind of the way the firm works. Everything else that kind of falls in. So if you ask me what I'm doing today, I've got some case stuff to do. I've got some client things to do. If you ask me Monday, it's like it will be completely different again. There are no 2 days. But also, I think that's part of what kind of keeps you doing this job, in that it's always different, it's always fresh, there's always something interesting with it. It's not just turning up, drafting witness statements, dealing with disclosure models. If that was what my job was, I'd have been out of this 17, 18 years ago. I have to have something different as part of that. And again, probably keep saying it, but going back to, that's what I get as an opportunity from Weightmans, is to be able to do the things that kind of interest me, that excite me, and actually make me want to actually do this, because I'm under no illusion this job is hard, but I can make it interesting as well. And so you don't mind doing it in that way.
Well, it's definitely good for maybe newer lawyers and people starting at businesses to see where it can go, because there's loads of variety in that role that you just talked about there. So you've got management, you've got technology, marketing, there's all sorts of things that you sort of take on.
Yeah.
So that can obviously make the job a lot more entertaining. You mentioned technology there, so I think it's probably a good place to start, actually, with the product innovation. So what would you say Weightmans is doing from a technological perspective, if we can say that? And are you using any automation, any AI? That's obviously a hot topic at the moment.
Yeah, so probably I've always kind of keep saying about 5 years ago, but then you realise that 5 years ago was probably kind of 6-7 years ago. But I'll say 5 years ago. We kind of developed and evolved out into making sure we had kind of specific innovation teams. 3 years ago, we then developed that and kind of blended in a product team into that as well. So we've got our very own kind of product innovation department, led by Stuart Whittle, Kat Wolfenden. And so what we have now is we've got a specific department that looks at that. We're constantly growing that out. And the idea of what we want to do there is we want to look at how we work with clients. So we don't just take it as a given that what we will do kind of from a client perspective is, we service the work, we do it how we always do it. We try and look at, well, what is a client problem? How can we service that in a slightly different way? How can we solve those problems maybe in a slightly innovative way? Whether that is using tech, whether that's maybe just doing it in a way we haven't thought of before. It doesn't always have to be a tech-based solution with that. So what we do there is we look at how that can be done. So there are things we use different kind of pieces of technology. That some of that is automated. Some of that is using some of our kind of decision-based software that helps kind of augment how clients will reach decisions. They will use decisions of that. We're looking around AI. Of course, we've got lots of projects going on with that. We're just making sure that we do that in the right way, right time. And again, there's part of that is then, it's not just necessarily from the client perspective, it's an internal piece. Lawyers are naturally cautious and naturally skeptical. There's a massive piece there in terms of how we bring them along on the journey and how we do that in the right way. There's lots of different things. We've got lots of products that we develop, that we use, that we sell into clients, that we develop with clients at the same time. So we've done some of that, certainly from, if I put my employment hat on, we've got some tools that, again, it's very much about the decision making, how you help clients get from A to B, but also very much about how you can kind of mitigate risk, how you can reduce compensation spend, how you spend litigation spend. It's about how you reduce that down and not just servicing the work, because you can get that anywhere. It's how we use the technology basically to then go, well, what value can we add from us being, you'll be a legal partner in this, but can you also become an innovation partner and say, well, because we do the work with you, we know how we can then help you in other ways and actually maybe prevent that kind of issues in the work environment in the first place. So there's lots of different ways, lots of different technologies we use, but it's really about being able to kind of understand the client problem and then use it in the right way to solve some of those issues if we can.
What's really interesting there is that you guys have your own dedicated almost squad to tackle the tech side, whereas obviously a lot of other firms probably don't have that or are not thinking about that. So certainly if there's another firm listening to this or someone from another firm, it's something to think about there, because there is obviously people like yourselves that really are looking to innovate and make that client experience better, really, and actually allow you to push things forward. So I think that's really interesting. It'd be interesting to see maybe in like 12 months from now, if we have another chat, just to see where that's gone and how you've innovated from here.
Yeah. As I say, I think what we've done and in a really unique way, and part of kind of the role I have as a policy innovation partner is I still case handle. I'm still a fee earner. I'm still a practicing lawyer. And so we've blended that piece in. So, I still work with clients. I still talk to clients, but I can then lend that into the product innovation piece. So it's not forcing square pegs into round holes. So we need to have a conversation with a client. It might not be an employment client. It might not be a large corporate client that I'm used to, but I can still have a conversation. I know how to talk to clients, but I also understand the technology. I understand how you can build the product. And I know then about how you get the right people in the room and help facilitate those conversations. So if we've got a partner in another part of the firm that needs to go and have a conversation with the client, they might not be as understanding of the technology piece. But that's where I can help bridge that gap, or I can get the right people in the room. So I think what we've done at Weightmans by having people who still practice law but are sitting in that innovation space, it blends everything together in a really nice way, so that very much the right people in the room at the right time to have those conversations. And I say, rather than kind of just pushing things in and slightly awkwardness sometimes comes, we've taken that down, and that we found real success in doing that. And it's just naturally helped us build and develop those relationships out as well.
Yeah, I like that, because being almost on the front lines as you are and working with clients, you'll be able to spot those problems and ways you can make things better. So I think that really helps, rather than just saying, let's hire a CTO, maybe that doesn't have legal experience, and hope that they can just innovate. So it's like almost mixing the two. Did you guys bring in someone with a more of a technological sort of background, or is it just using your own expertise?
It's been fairly organic. So we brought in a new product manager to help with that. But those of us that are doing the innovation partner roles, we are all, I think, we are all kind of lawyers from within Weightmans that have developed into that. The innovation team, we've developed that over the last couple of years. That's been, again, largely organic, but we have recruited into some of the engineer roles. Some of the more kind of techie roles have built people into some of that. But I think a large part of it has been about kind of evolving what we've got and drawing on it. The other real benefit from that is we bring in and absorb the expertise from within the firm, and you kind of break down those silos that sometimes you get in a law firm. So going, I'm an employment lawyer, I can't go and talk to regulatory clients, and I can't go and talk to insurance clients. Well, I can, and I think now I've got a role that kind of sits right across all those areas you practice in. So it's not necessarily being a kind of case of going out and kind of laterally bringing people in. It's about actually taking down some of the barriers for us internally and doing that. We have got some external influence where we need to do some of that. But it's about recognizing what we've got internally and how we can then use that. Because actually, if I go and talk to a client about a legal problem, is it any different really about talking to them about something that involves tech? Well, not really. I just then need to make sure I've got an understanding, or I've got someone who can come in and talk about tech piece in the same way. If it was a legal issue that's not an employment one, I take somebody with me that talks about those issues. So it's just recognizing where the strengths are and making sure the right people are in the room. We've always had that. We just now play into it a lot better, I think, as a firm.
Yeah, I think that's great. So the next questions I want to ask you is a bit around the marketing side of what you guys do. I know you do a lot with things like LinkedIn. So I was hoping you could just talk me through, first of all, your strategy maybe to get clients, but then also maybe the firms.
Yeah, so I think for myself, I have to be kind of slightly conscious. So I work very much large corporate employers. So that's my day-to-day. They're my clients. So I think I'm very conscious that I'm not going to go out and tomorrow I'm going to, market myself in a way that, Monday, that's going to walk through the door. For me, it's very much about, the relationship. And probably what I do today is 2, 3, 4 year burn in terms of the development, the relationship that will go into something. That might then pay off in a longer sense in terms of what could come down the line in terms of clients and the success that comes into that. And we see that, it's always been very much about who I will work with today is the relationship for the client of tomorrow in terms of certainly the clients I have and the relationships piece. And that works, and that's very much that. And we've had in recent years, clients that we've worked with day to day, 2 or 3 years later, they move on, they move into other roles, and then they'll come back to us and go, well, actually, we've seen you do X here, Weightmans. Would you now want to come back in that respect? So yeah, that's very much kind of how I look at things. But of course, I still then have a role of going, well, I'm a partner at Weightmans and I'm ambassador for the firm. So even if I'm not necessarily doing something that is about myself, I still have to think about the wider firm, the wider brand of the firm. And it might be something we can do elsewhere or somebody else will feed into that. So I guess there's two hats for me. One is how I build the relationship, how I might market. If you want to come and work with me as an employment lawyer, that's fine. So that will maybe play into, HR, general counsel, other employment lawyers that might be in an in-house setting, but it's very much for the relationship for tomorrow. But then if you've still got employment law issues that are immediately for today, or you've got other issues that the firm would help with, I'm very much making sure I can promote the brand of Weightmans, what goes into that and how that can work. So I have to kind of wear those two hats. LinkedIn is probably primarily the one I will do that on, just because the immediacy and the access that gives me in some respects around some of those things. We also do some other things. So we've had a real amount of success very recently. So just before Christmas, we relaunched a campaign around kind of what it is to be a leader, and we tried to show the kind of the authentic leadership side of, the human side of the leaders within Weightman. So we had a campaign that went out around some of that. That was really good at just going, we're just people. So we highlighted that for people in the firm, and we kind of linked back to kind of childhood pictures, videos of what just different people in the firm were like. And then just now we've just done it with our early careers team, and I think there's another one coming next quarter with another part of the firm. Again, just trying to highlight we're just people. This is what we're like. So there's lots of different ways we do things. It's about really kind of playing to these strengths, though, as to what you can achieve and what you're going to get some return on those kind of things, I think.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting the route that you've taken so far, because it's very much on the personal, sort of human, personal branding side of marketing, which I feel works really well for law. There's obviously other industries that it works well for, like accountancy, for example, or real estate or whatever. But I think there seems to be a few firms that I've noticed that have really gone all in on that personal brand side, and it is paying off. So it's interesting that you do that. Would you say, let's say you personally, do you get any inquiries? Do you get people coming to you through LinkedIn? That'd be interesting to know.
Yeah. So the LinkedIn thing is crazy in some respects. The whole thing kind of blown up in the last year or so, but it has had real benefits. So the immediate one that always comes back, and look, be honest, I've had this internally in the firm, is, where do you get the revenue back from it? Where's the work? And I think there's a lot more to that. It's a lot more nuanced than just simply going, what's coming in. It's things like this. It's opportunities to come out and be able to talk to you guys. You meet people, but there is undoubtedly an indirect piece that comes from it. So, if I'm recruiting, and we've recruited this year, it's a great way that you can go out and speak to people that's in a slightly more indirect way. The weirdest one, I did interview somebody, and halfway through they kind of went, "Oh, you don't need to blare your background because I know what books are on your bookshelf behind you there." And I was kind of like, what? And she was like, "Oh, well, I've seen you on something, and so I poured over what's on the shelves behind you." And I was like, "Okay, well, this is a bit weird." And I don't know whether I should give you the job or not, actually, because you seem to know where I live. But it was the personal piece. Somebody else, when we did our early careers assessments last year, kind of said, "Look, I've applied to Weightmans because I've seen what you do and how you talk about the firm online as part of LinkedIn." So it's very much about how you can go out and go, look, this is what it's like, not just if you need an employment lawyer, or you need a law firm. It's how you can come and go, this is what it's like to work with us as well, because I tell you, I'll show you the good, I'll show you the bad, but this is what it's like to work here. So it absolutely plays back in that this is how you can get, an insight into what it's like. And it undoubtedly brings people to us in that respect, because it's just about being authentic. It's about showing what this is like. And yeah, we've definitely had interest. We've had people that have come to us through this. And even if it's just a question to go, well, are you recruiting? And again, it might not be today, could be next month, next year. If it just reminds you, actually, I do know an employment lawyer because I've seen John on LinkedIn. It's free. That's invaluable in that sense. It's a little bit crazy, but why would we not make the most of that? If we can do.
You've raised a really good point, because I was thinking about it from a client perspective, which is obviously a benefit and something that you've seen, which is great, but also from a recruitment perspective. So you're not having to spend fees on recruitment and whatnot. So you've got people coming to you, which is obviously another good benefit from doing it. So that's really, really interesting. How about things like, do you do things like networking, or do you run any advertisements, anything like that?
So the networking thing, I suppose not as much as I probably would used to when I was a more junior lawyer. Again, it's about probably for me where I play into the strength and the return on things. Again, looking at the nature of the client piece. But that said, it's about probably being in places will be. So as I've moved more into that legal tech space, you do find then UK, you go to the events, the conferences where you need to then build up and you develop out of those kind of things. I would be part of that. On the employment law side of things, probably not so much anymore, again, because I'm probably not in the trenches of doing the employment law piece anymore with some of that. It's about where I take the best use of that and get the connections out of it. But again, I go back to the biggest thing for me on the networking side now is the LinkedIn piece, the connections I've built out of that. So, again, employment lawyers, every other person on there seems to be an employment lawyer, but there are people there. If I can't, service that work for you because either I've got a conflict or it's a claimant side of it, people there I'll push work straight across to. Got a network of people now that I rely on. That's come from that. And I don't think I would ever get that network from walking into a room with people. Yeah. There's a much more immediate way I can build that community of people now. And I've got, kind of financial advisors, I've got lawyers, I've got marketing people. I've got a bit, and they're not just a network, it's a community. There's friends as well there that, for me, in some ways, that's replaced that kind of networking event piece. And I've been really honest as well, that's a much better way for me to do it, because the idea of walking into a room full of strangers, I kind of saw I left early. I'm that person. Do this in this environment, much better way of doing it for me. But there is still a place for that, and I think something that I guess for others, for more junior people, you've got to still be doing that, of course, because it's still valuable for what you take from that. Yeah.
Do you, within your firm, do you have maybe younger lawyers or newer lawyers doing more things on LinkedIn? Is it something you guys are pushing as a firm, or is it an individual choice? How does that look?
We are at a place where I think we've recognised that we need to do more with it. We don't do badly. So kind of really good friend of mine, Simon Marshall from TV and Marketing, who got me into this. He's doing a lot of work at the moment and looking about individual influence against law firm influence. We didn't do too badly actually in terms of Weightmans, in terms of I think it was the individual kind of likes per employee from Weightmans. We've had quite highly on that. But we can do so much more. So if you look at the recent, I think it was top 200 law firms, how many lawyers from Weightmans kind of ranking the rankings on that? There was two. There's myself and Ben Trogue. We should have more than that, because I know there's a lot of people who put good stuff out there. We just don't do it consistently. We just don't do it, in a way that really highlights that. So one of the things that I've said, that SJR, head of marketing, has said is we need to start pushing that. So we're going to look at, can we get a core group of people and make more of this? Because we do some really good stuff. We've got some fantastic people at Weightmans. We just need to start doing a lot more of that. So I think, to answer the question, we do, but we could do more, because you can see the potential there. And, there are other firms that do some brilliant stuff. So you look at like Mills and Reed, you look at like Higgs, and I've got friends who work there, so I'll quite happily name check them. They far better. And I'm not precious in saying that. I see what kind of like Emma does there. I see what Sophie does. They're far better as a firm. And I kind of look and go, well, we could do that. We could do things like that. So we have to get better at doing that. We have to kind of catch up and do that. And only because I know we can as well. So yeah, you're absolutely right. It's a question we've asked internally, and I think we should catch that, and we need to run with it, I think, for me.
Yeah, perfect. I think that makes perfect sense, because I agree with you. I've looked at people like Higgs. I know they're doing some really, really great stuff with their LinkedIn stuff. So they're certainly a standout if I'm looking at the group of people. But you're still in the sort of top 100 sort of LinkedIn influencers as yourself. Where did you finish? What was your ranking?
I think I'm fourth. I came fourth, so I think I'm like the top partner and the top employment lawyer. So I absolutely will take that.
Yeah, that's great.
It's just it's not a pressure. It's just the only way is down, because you look at the three above me. That's just a different ball game. The only way is down from now on. But I think for me, what that gives you is, if I can do this, literally anybody can, because do you know what? I'm literally making this up as I go along. So I take that as being, if I can do it, someone who posts nothing about employment law at all, really again about being, look, this is what it's like being a lawyer. This is what it's like if you want to come and work for me, or you want to kind of come and you need a client. If I can do it, anyone can. And I think it's very much about being that, and about just saying, look, if you want to do this, you can just do it, and anyone could try it. I've only been doing this for probably a year to 18 months now. It's really about just going, you can do this. But yeah, I think the only way is down in terms of the rankings. But even then, do you know what? It doesn't matter. It's not about the engagement. It's not about the likes. It's just about going, we can do this. And I think it's just a different way, and it's a different part of what it is to be a lawyer, in 2025 now, and a different part of, the skill set you need to have about how you market it and how you network yourself. It's a different part of it these days.
I guess if you phrased it as, if you can commit 18 months of just doing a bit every day and you're posting consistently, the end result is inquiries and recruitment improvements straight away. So I think that any partner out there that would be listening to this and thinking, is it going to be worth my time? The answer really is, you can equate that to quite a bit of savings in one area and potentially revenue in another. So there is definitely a benefit to doing it. I wouldn't be doing my podcast job correctly if I didn't ask you about the wider business marketing and what brings in the right sort of inquiries for you. Do you guys do anything else that brings in inquiries?
Yeah, so I mean, we obviously do everything else that I suppose you would expect a law firm to do. So there's plenty of other things that you will see that will go out. So we run the campaigns. We do all the kind of profile raising that you would usually see. I think for us, it's about making sure that we do things in the right way as a firm. So, we're not going to maybe go out and spend the money in the budgets that you would see from kind of some of the bigger firms and different ways of doing it. It's about, we're Weightmans, and we do things in the right way with some of that. I'm trying to think of something that's kind of really stood out. I think the one, again, I referred to it before, is the campaign that we ran about the leadership piece and who we are as firms. That's the kind of stuff we do, and we do really well, because that's the kind of law firm that we're at. But yeah, we do the right kind of thing, but we do it well. Again, I'm trying to think of something beyond that as a really good example of what we've done. That for me is the big one, because that just really, I think that resonated both internally in the firm, but externally with clients. And what I think it also really is, there was a lot of other law firms and big people in those firms that kind of went, that really sells you as a firm really well. And clients then spoke to it as well and said, that's exactly why we come to you. That's the kind of thing that, again, kind of sells us as a firm and why people want to work with us. It's that thing of kind of people by people, but it really does know why people come to us to work with the firm that we've got here.
Yeah, I think it resonates with people. I think at the end of the day, maybe from if I'm a corporate business and I'm expecting a lawyer, I might be expecting maybe something a little bit suited up, or it's a little bit stuffy maybe. I know I'm making assumptions here, but I think that in itself pulls down the barriers, makes you a lot more approachable, a lot more human. So people are more likely to be like, yeah, I want to work with those guys. So I think it definitely makes sense. And for the benefit of yourself and people listening, as a marketing agency, I actually pulled some numbers for all our legal clients last year. And funny enough, employment law is the lowest cost per lead for Google ads. So again, this is across all areas of law, family, criminal, all the rest of it. So just something to bear in mind if you're listening to this podcast and you're thinking, I'm an employment lawyer, that could be a route for you. Next thing I want to ask is about sales process, because again, it can vary between firms. It can be different for different people. So if I was a client and I was coming to you, how would that typically look?
So it probably very much depends on where and what we do with stuff. So, if it's a more kind of formal pitch, then it's obviously will come as part of that. The one area that I think I can probably really talk to is the innovation piece for that. So, what we very much do as part of the innovation, the tech piece, and how we fold those things in is, the whole team had really good specialist sales training for that. So, again, talk to myself in that we will be in part of those conversations with clients. We will have that sales piece. We know the things we need to look at. We know the conversation piece. So we can have that direct conversation, again, about the right people in the room, but you can have that conversation with the lawyer as well. And we've also done now this year is we've actually brought in our very first kind of dedicated sales specialist to some of the tech stuff that we're looking to sell. Because we recognize, again, in that space, there are some things that you need someone who's got the sales expertise and experience. So we brought Joel in, and he's there effectively to help us get into the right space, into the right people, because, sometimes you've got to get to the right people in organizations to be able to sell these things. As we move into some of the tech areas, you're not necessarily selling to the people that you're going to speak to. You've got to get into certain parts of business to do that. We've also found that the sales of software is a very different process to selling legal work. So we brought the expertise in for that, but It's been something different, again, probably a little bit different for law firms, but we're kind of really keen to get into that. We're really keen to be different in how we do it, and what the client need is, how does the client need to react to that, and what would the client expect? Well, sometimes if it's about having a conversation with a lawyer, that's fine. If actually it's having a conversation with someone who's a bit more specialist on the sales piece, well, we've got someone to do that for you now as well. So we're very kind of dynamic. We're very much, we'll do what needs to be done in that sense. But yeah, it's an interesting way of doing it. Again, learned an awful lot about sales and learned an awful lot about how actually some of these things work, you know, around with some of that, and maybe in kind of slightly non-traditional way that you would get if we were just trying to sell or kind of, you know, negotiate and deal over, you know, legal work in a sense.
I think it's really interesting that you've brought in a BDM for, so, you know, because it's not really common across law firms. There is obviously some firms that have salespeople, dedicated salespeople, but it is very few and far between, I've found. So it's interesting. I know it's a more technical, you know, selling tech kind of role. So it's not really a typical BDM for selling just regular legal work, but it's still interesting that you've got that in-house. Also, I think it's interesting you mentioned about that you've had sales training and you guys are really focused on sales, because again, a lot of firms kind of just approach it and just almost wing it in a lot of ways. So which can work for people and it does work for people, but it's interesting that you've had dedicated sales training to improve on that. Could you talk me through that a little bit more? Is there what did you guys go through in order to?
Yeah, so we work with a guy called Simon Hers, who we've done some work with the firm, but we had I would say it must have been about a year's worth of kind of really regular training with him. And he kind of took us really back to basics of how sales work, what goes into it, and understanding not just the methodology behind it, but then how you build and put that all together through the entire sales process, from, you know, kind of the initial prospecting piece into all the different parts of, you know, how you kind of understand the budget piece and the needs of clients, and then how you kind of close things and you work it through. So almost kind of deconstructing it and taking you back to almost like school in terms of understanding something, which for us is in some respects quite alien, you know, in a legal sense. But then when you put the pieces back together, it was like, well, actually you could see that. And we did it over about over a year. But in a sense of, as we were then getting out there in the real world and seeing it, you can kind of go, actually, I can see this. And so what we're learning, you could see the application of those things. And you saw where it fell flat on its face, where somebody had shut a door on you, or how many times do I have to keep pushing this before somebody will come back and go, actually, we're now interested. But having somebody who, you know, had a career in sales and a career in people behind them to be able to play that off, absolutely invaluable. And actually, when you come off the other side of it, we've just got a whole round of experience, which you can also then relay back actually into the legal piece as well. So if you go client tends, client pitches, you suddenly see the procurement side. You suddenly see how this actually all fits together. And sometimes in that way of you've always done it because that's just the way we've done it. Different lens that's been applied to it. So by bringing somebody in who's kind of specialist sales trainer, really made a huge difference to us actually. And just having that voice, but doing it not just here's a intensive week's course, off you go. Doing it over a period of time where we went out, we tried it, we fell flat, or we came back and went, this worked actually, Simon, how do we do this? Absolutely invaluable. And again, probably one of those things you just have to do now as a lawyer, which 20 years ago, you never even dreamed of doing. So again, the fact that we're willing to do things in this way and look at these things, for me, it's that thing of this is what keeps me here, this is what makes it exciting, this is what makes it different. But it's also, this is what you need to do to be a lawyer these days. It's not just about the law. You know, the law is probably 30% of my job, if I'm really honest. Yeah,
it's interesting because I mean the access to more options as a consumer, I guess it's made it a lot more. The competition levels have just shot up. So things like sales training and actually learning these skills are so much more essential now than they were 20 years ago, because they can just pick between maybe 5 or 6 different firms. So at least having that training could be the difference of getting a client or not. So I think that's really interesting. And you can use that skill in all of us, different areas of the business. Any problems with clients or any issues, that sort of stuff comes in handy.
It is, and it even works and is applicable. I've got a team of 20 people I manage. So, there are conversations there where actually you can take elements from this. So it's a hugely important piece of personal development just as people, to manage people, to work with people. It's been absolutely eye-opening. And the only thing you can't think is actually, I wish I'd known this 10 years ago. But I guess 10 years ago, it probably wasn't in the same sphere as what it is. But no, hugely enlightening. One of those things, absolutely anyone gets the chance to do it. You have to bite your hand off to do those kind of things, because what you take out of it, even if you take one thing from it, it just fundamentally, let's say, that lens you look at through things is completely different, absolutely completely different.
Yeah, I think that's a really good place to stop as well, because I think anyone listening to the podcast, especially people within law, if that's definitely a skill that's worth seeking after and improving on. But yeah, John, it's been great speaking to you. I think we had a really good chat there.
Yeah.
How would people listening, how would they get access to you, speak to you? Would it be LinkedIn or through the website? What's the best way?
I think, to be honest, LinkedIn is probably the best place for it. That will link you into Weightmans, or if you want to get hold of me directly. So yeah, by all means, I'm on LinkedIn. Please, by all means, say hello. And yeah, thank you all. It's been a really good chat.
Thanks for your time, John.